Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Today I am bringing you the promised tutorial for this mini album made using folded cards. I'm using mine from Hobby Lobby, you can see there. So let me show you a quick flip through. This is what our book looks like when it's standing up. This version is completely made. The base is made from these folded cards from Hobby Lobby. They're craft paper. They are 5 by 7 inches. So when you open the cover, you've got a flappy page on the right with a pocket on the left. It is connected to a page with a flap on the left and a pocket on the right. So there's 4 sets of these flappy pages, and I'm just showing you there a little card that you can also make as an insert that goes in the pocket. So you can see here on each page, I'm using 2 different patterns of paper to kind of go every other and to give a nice variety to our book. So we are going to make a hinge, we're going to make the cover, we're going to make the pages. And this album's really cool because it lays really flat because of the type of hinge that we're going to use. So like I said, we're using these folded cards from Hobby Lobby. I'm also going to be needing a trimmer and some other basic supplies. To decorate the book I'm making on camera here, I'm going to use this 6 by 6 inch paper pad. So because it is 6 by 6 inches, we will be trimming down the size of our pages. So let's make our pages first. So for each of your 8 folded cards, the first thing you're going to need to do is we're going to cut down the height of our card from 7 inches down to 6¼ inches. Then on one side of our card, we're going to trim off 1½ inches. This is going to give us that shorter little flap that will be on each of the pages. And you're going to do this 8 times. Okay, so you're going to trim 8 cards just like that. Then you're going to fold them in half, so you'll see that little flap. And you can see I rounded the corners of just the flap. Leave the other corners straight edges. You'll see why we're going to do that coming up. So go ahead and fold all 8 of your cards. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take 2 more cards and we're going to cut the little pocket pieces. So the first thing we need to do is cut that height back down to 6¼ inches. So you'll do that on both of your cards. And then from each card, you're going to cut 4 pieces that are 2½ inches wide. So I'm making them just tiny bit smaller than 2½ inches, so I don't have to use that scored line down the center of the card. So I'm kind of measuring just to the right of the 2½ inch mark on my trimmer. Gives me a tiny little sliver that I don't use. So you're going to do that on 2 cards so that you end up with 8 of those skinny pieces. Then go ahead and round 2 of the corners on one of the long sides of each of your pocket pieces. Now here I'm showing you how I've laid out the decorative paper. You can see I've got 2 different patterns for each of my flippy pages. We've got 1 of each of that pattern on either side of the flap and then the other 2, 1 in the middle and 1 on the pocket. So you're going to want to pick out 16 different patterns, 2 for each of your flippy pages. Most of these I did the front and the back patterns of how they were laid out in the paper pack, but this is a great project for using single-sided paper as well. Now, you're going to have 2 different measurements you're going to cut. The pattern paper that's on the outside, so on the part of the flap you're going to see, you're going to cut at 3¼ inches and 2¾ inches. That adds up to 6. All you'll have left is the little strip where the hole is. Okay, 1 will go on the flap and 1 will go right inside under the flap. Then your second pattern, you're going to cut at 3¼ and 2¼ this time. The 3¼ will go on the back side of the flap and the 2¼ will go on our little pocket piece. So there's the back side of the flap and this is going to go where the pocket is. So you're going to do that process 8 times, okay? 8 times with 2 different patterns of paper. So here again, 3 1/4 and 2 3/4. And then that's the flap and under the flap. And then your second one is 3 1/4 and 2 1/4. That'll be on the back side of the flap and on the pocket, okay? So you'll see here in a minute, you're gonna alternate your pages, whether the flap is gonna be on the right or the left, but for now, just get all your patterned paper cut. Now that we have all our pattern paper cut, we are going to round the corners to match the card. So on this flap, we're going to round just those 2 corners that are on the rounded edges of the card. Same thing on the inside flap, and then same thing on the piece that'll go on top of the pocket. The only one you don't round is the one that's under the flap. Then I'm using art glitter glue. I don't know why it's called that because there's no glitter in it. It's just really great glue for paper projects. And I'm going to now mount all of my pattern paper onto my 8 separate cards. Now to attach the pocket to the page, we're just going to run a bead of glue on the 2 short sides and the bottom that has the straight corners. Line it up on the corners of the card and press that glue down, and then you'll see that you have the pocket there. So your first page is going to have the flap on the right, and then your second page here is going to have the flap folding out to the left. You're going to go back and forth, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, as you put your pages together. It really only matters if you have patterned paper that needs to go a certain way, like if it has a top and a bottom, but pretty much all these florals can go either direction. And again, for the pocket, you'll just do a bead of glue on the 2 short ends and the long side with the straight corners, and then place that down, line it up on your card below, and press down the 2 sides and the bottom, and you'll have a nice pocket there. So here's one with a right flap and one with a left flap. On the backs, you will need to run a length of score tape on the side that has the straight corners. This will help us get ready to actually put our book together. So now I have all my pages with the decorative paper, so I'm just going to show you right flap, then left flap, right flap, up against a left flap, right flap again, against a left flap, and right flap against the left flap. So those are your 8 pages. You've got those all ready to go. Now let's make the hinge for the binding of our book. This is what it's going to look like when it's all finished, and I'm going to show you how to make it right now. So we're going to take another card and again start off by trimming the height to 6 1/4 inches. Then we're going to need 3 pieces of different widths. The first one is going to be 3 inches. Then I flip my card around, do 2 1/2 inches, and then our third piece is 1 1/2 inches. Next, for all 3 pieces, we're going to score them at 1/2 inch on each side. So you can see I'm doing 1/2 inch there on the left. I'm flipping it over and doing it again just to make sure it's nice and creased. Then turning my piece and scoring 1/2 inch on the other side as well. You're going to do this with all 3 of your pieces. So because this is 3 inches, we did 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on either side. We have a 2 inch gusset in the middle. Now our 2 1/2 inch piece, we're scoring at 1/2 inch, and then a 1/2 inch on the other side is going to give us a 1 1/2 inch gusset in the middle. And our third piece, score at 1/2 inch on the first side, turn it around and score 1/2 inch on the other side, and that will leave us a 1/2 inch gusset in the center. That's all we need the scoreboard for. You could easily do that with a ruler as well. Now on all 3 of those pieces, we're going to fold and burnish all the score marks. And I am going on this biggest piece, I am going back and forth and burnishing it on both sides. So just make sure those scored sections on the sides are going to be able to move easily so that we can attach our pages to our book by using this hinge. Now taking that really strong glue again, we're going to stack and glue our hinge. So I have glue just on the center section of our smallest hinge piece, and I'm going to attach that down right in the center of the 2 1/2 inch piece. So this is the 1 1/2 inch right on top of the 2 1/2. You can see I'm pressing it really well, making sure those little pieces stick up nicely. Then I'm going to put glue on the back side of our middle piece, our 2 1/2 inch piece, and glue this down again to the center of our 3 inch piece. The last thing we need to do to prepare our hinge is run a length of 1/2 inch score tape on the outer edge there on both sides. And we'll burnish that down really well and just leave it until we're ready to use it. Now let's make the cover of our album. So for the sample one, I made a cover out of 2 cards here. You can see I scored them at 2 inches and glued those 2 sections together to make the spine, but as you can see, it makes the pages kind of stick out a little bit. So this time I decided to use sheets of cardstock so that I can cut them a little bit larger so that my cover is a little bit bigger and my pages don't stick out past the cover. So I have 2 pieces of this red cardstock, and I'm going to cut them at 6.5 inches tall by 7.5 inches wide. I'm going to do this for both of my pieces, and then we're going to score them and overlap just like I did on the sample. So again, 6.5 inches tall and 7.5 inches wide. So now using our scoreboard again, or you could use a ruler and a straight edge, I'm going to score both of these pieces at 2 inches. So of the 7.5 inches, 2 of that is going to be the spine, and the other 5.5 is going to be the width of our cover. So you can see again, I'm going to score at 2 inches. That leaves me 5.5 for the cover. Flip it over, score it again just to make sure it's nice and creased. And then I'm going to fold on that score line and burnish that down with my bone folder. So now taking those 2 pieces, I'm going to overlap the 2-inch spine, and we're going to glue that together to quickly and easily make the cover for our album. Now, in order to make this cover a little thicker and more sturdy, we're going to double mat the outside and the inside. So I'm going to take this pink and I'm going to cut these at 5.25 by 6.25. That's just a 1/4 inch smaller on each dimension, height and width, than the red cover. So again, 5.25 by 6.25. And these are going to be mounted on the front and back of our book covers. Now the decorative paper that'll go on top of the pink, we're going to cut this at 5 inches by, and it already is 6 inches. So again, that is kind of the rule of thumb when you're matting, is the smaller paper on top, just do a 1/4 inch smaller on each of your dimensions. That gives you that nice 1/8 inch border all the way around. So that's our front and back covers. Then I am going to also do the same thing on the inside of our covers. So with this bright green, I'm going to cut 2 more pieces at 5.25 inches by 6.25 inches. Those we will mount right onto the inside of the red cardstock book cover. And then the decorative paper for those, again, we'll cut at 5 inches by 6 inches. And using our art glitter glue again, we're just running a bead around a little bit in the middle. We're going to mat our patterned paper on top of our pink cardstock and then add that double mat to the front cover and the back cover of our red book. Then we'll do the other 2 on the bright green cardstock. And by that point, our front and back covers will be about 5 pieces of cardstock thick. It'll be nice and sturdy to hold our pages inside. And I forgot I needed one more double matted piece for the spine. So I'm going to cut this at 6 1/4 inches by 1 3/4 inches. Again, that is a 1/4 inch smaller than the actual size of the spine. And then the decorative paper, we will cut at 1/2 inch by 6 inches and mount those on top of each other and add those to the outside of the spine. And now that our book cover is ready, let's attach the hinge that we made. So those two flaps that have the score tape, you're going to bend those or fold those to the back. Those are going to attach to the inside of the spine, that 2-inch spine that we created. So I'm first going to take the backing off the left side of my score tape, and we're going to line that up in the center going top to bottom and just a little bit inside the score mark so that our book cover, the front flap, will be able to open and close. You can see I'm burnishing it down there to make sure it's stuck nice and good and that our cover can open and close freely. Then take the other piece of score tape off and you're going to line that up and press it down on the other side of the hinge there. Press it down really well, and there you can see our hinge inside our book cover. And now the last step for the construction of our book is to attach our pages to the hinge. I am starting with the very last page. This is one that has the flap on the left. I lined it up, then I removed the backing from the score tape and pressed the piece of the hinge over. So this is the back flap of the 4 little flaps on the hinge. Now I'm taking the right flap page. I'm going to peel off the backing. Now these pages are going to get glued to each other. So you have a couple options. If you want to make a large pocket between these flappy pages, you're going to do glue like this. You're going to do a line of it along the score tape, a line at the bottom, and then a line at the other side. This is the folded edge where the flap is. This is going to give us that large pocket when we glue these two together. Again, I just line them up really well, and then once we have them in place, then you'll press them together and also press that edge that's near the spine down so that score tape really attaches really well to that 4th flap of the hinge. And here you can see I'm kind of laying out the flaps, really pressing down where the glue is to make sure everything is nice and secure. So that is the basic steps for attaching the page. You're going to have a left flap at the very back and then a right flap. Now we're going to do pages. This would be 5 and 6. So there would be page 6. Line it up, peel off the back end of the score tape and lay that hinge piece down. And then you're going to sandwich that hinge piece between those pages. Once you've done those back 2 sets, you're going to go to the front and start with your first page, and then your second page, and then your third page, and your 4th page. So here's the book with the pages inside, and we've got a right flap attached to a left flap. Again, remember you can glue those completely together, or make a pocket between by just doing the glue in a U shape like I showed you. Then we have a right flap and a left flap, a right flap and a left flap. And this is the first one I showed you with the big pocket in the middle, our back cover and our spine. Awesome, awesome. So now let's make some cards for the pockets. These are just extra places to journal or add pictures. You're going to cut 8 cards that measure 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. This will make sure they slide easily in and out of the pockets. I'm also going to make 2 larger cards. These are to go in those bigger pockets between the pages. These I'm going to cut at 6 3/4 inches by 3.5 inches. And again, I'm going to make 2 of those because I ended up making a big pocket on my second set of pages and my last set of pages. Here you can see I'm going to show you where that would stick in, and it'll stick out a little bit up at the top, kind of like a bookmark. Now for all those black cards, we're going to make a white card 1/4 inch smaller, so 3.5 inches by 4 3/4 inches. And these are going to go on the back side. And then we're going to cut pattern paper the same dimensions, 3.5 by 4 3/4, to attach to the other side of the black. So here's the white. This side will be for journaling. And then on the other side of the black, we will attach pattern paper for the decorative touch. You'll see what I mean here as I flip through. And for my 2 larger black cards, we're going to measure white at 3 1/4 by 6.5, and then we'll also do our decorative paper at that measurement. So here's my cards. You can see I've got the black is the largest, and then on one side I've got pattern paper, and the other side I have the white paper for the journaling. But on either side you can see the black all the way around the edges because that is that larger measurement. And that is our finished album. I love these albums so much. They have so much room for photos and journaling. I've tried to include all the measurements in the description and on screen as I was making it. I'd love to know what you guys think about this mini album, if you want to see more paper crafting, and let me know who you might make one of these for. Have a great day.